Britannia rules the waves, and it appears that colonial overseas ambitions are her new future, as she continues to fade as a continental power. The Second Opium War of 1849 saw the British seize the crucial trading port of Hong Kong, further enhancing British prestige, resources, and maritime power. The new leader of the Whigs, the Earl of Derby, having replaced Sir Robert Peel as Prime Minister, persists on trumpeting the success of the war to further cement his newfound power, as well as distract the British public from brewing internal and continental tension. While the United Kingdom passed through the revolutions of 1848 relatively unscathed, the poor harvest seasons of 1848 and 1849 had exacerbated the struggle between the rural farmers and their supposed representatives in Westminster. Similarly, there were concerns about how Derby and the Whigs were handling foreign policy on the continent, in particular, how it was handling the alliances made by Peel and the Conservatives following the First Opium War. At the conclusion of the Second Opium War, Derby managed to preserve the alliance with Sweden and renegotiate the alliance with Denmark. With a new emperor in France and the German states being unstable after 1848, it became more imperative than ever to Queen Victoria that Britain maintain a pulse on Europe. However, Derby's efforts have brought Britain into conflict with Russia, which is also expanding its influence in Scandinavia. With the new Russian Tsar Alexander II allied to the new French Emperor Napoleon III, Derby does not want to bring Britain into a war against the combined strength of Russia and France, yet failure to maintain European allies could result in the Tsar and the Emperor carving up Germany piecemeal as the concert of Europe falters in the wake of the recent revolutions. Only by capitalizing on colonial conquests can Derby and the Whigs hope to maintain the facade of an imperturbable Britain. As with most revolutions, France was at the heart of it. In consequence of the poor harvests and the popular upheaval of 1848, the Orleanist regime had been toppled. A short-lived republic had sprouted up, and a new Bonaparte had emerged as emperor. While the republican elements within France had been chafing under the monarchy, and were confident that this lesser Napoleon would quickly lose his power, this new emperor has actually managed to maintain a delicate balance between preserving the image of the proud emperor of renowned lineage and a man of the French people. He has not been too heavy-handed with his power, and actually has begun various social reforms to relieve the working classes. Similarly, he has also adroitly calmed the fears of France's neighbors, many of whom still keep the memory of his predecessor in disdain. He has convinced them that he is not the conqueror that the original Napoleon was, and that he will work alongside Britain, Austria, and Russia to preserve the peace of Europe. These words seemed enough to satisfy Alexander II, who renewed the Franco-Russian alliance previously made with Louis Philippe. It is a strange alliance, the most liberal regime of Europe allied with the most conservative regime of Europe. But then again, many said the same of the Russo-Turkish alliance. And both France and Russia have common enemies in the German Confederation. As Prussia grows in military strength along France's border, and Austria continues to undermine Ottoman control of the Slavic Balkans, the two emperors are determined to be ready for the next great European war. More and more of Germany is succumbing to Prussian power. After the revolutions of 1848 threatened to overturn every traditional monarchy on the continent, Prussia did not only survive, but thrived, as it used its military to support the North German states, and thereby increase its own power. Even the protected states of Limburg and Luxembourg now fall under the Prussian sphere of influence. While Friedrich Wilhelm IV is not yet so bold as to declare himself Emperor of the Germans, many liberals regard him as the mouthpiece for the German people, not the Austrian Emperor. This new wave of German nationalism has proved to be a rising tide for Prussia while Austria sinks. But it is also a tide of war, one that will inevitably bring the two German powers into conflict. Like the United Kingdom, the United States prefers to focus its efforts in colonization and economic expansion to distract its people from brewing social issues. US President Winfield Scott, a Whig with an impressive military record, should have had an easy victory if not for the slavery issue once more erupting in the wake of the new states being admitted into the Union. As new territories become new states, debates have broken out whether the states would lend more congressional power to the free or the slave states. The Democratic candidate Alexander Stephens was a hardline advocate for the expansion of America's peculiar institution, while Scott endorsed the Compromise of 1850, proposed by former President Millard Fillmore and Democrat Senator Stephen Douglas, which upheld the notion of popular sovereignty to decide the slavery issue. Winning the election by the narrowest of margins, Scott and the Compromise Whigs won the presidency, establishing popular sovereignty as the new law of the land. After the Whigs introduced a gag rule on the Congress floor as a means of shutting down the debate, they hoped that new economic endeavors in Asia and the Pacific, particularly free trade agreements with Hawaii, Cambodia, and Japan, may inspire America to look abroad rather than home. Alexander II is in a rather comfortable position in 1856. With the revolutions of 1848 weakening all his neighbors but not touching his domain, the new Tsar is able to focus his efforts on internal affairs, promoting education, supporting industry, and most notably, his new edict freeing the serfs from their lands. Although many conservatives groan and protest, Alexander is determined to bring Russia up to speed with the rest of Europe, especially at a time when his neighbors are looking weaker and may allow Russia to once more take its place as the main land power of Europe. The alliance with the new Napoleon is questionable, but allows Russia some valuable leverage on Europe's political bargaining table. As the Tsar looks to expand his empire into Afghanistan and challenge British power in Asia, a Franco-Russian alliance could give even perfidious Albion some pause. While the revolutions of 1848 shook the Austrian Empire to its very foundations, the damage could have been much worse. When the Hungarians rose up in revolution, many Europeans saw this as the beginning of the end of the Habsburgs. If the Hungarians succeeded in gaining independence, soon the Croats, the Czechs, the Slovenes, and the Italian minorities would soon follow. Prussia, in particular, looked in eagerness at the prospect of finally emerging triumphant against the long-held power of Austria. However, the Austrians were able to put down the Hungarians with Russian intervention, the Slavs remained placated, and soon 1848 came and went. Only Italian Lombardy was lost, and even then it was more due to the military invasion by Sardinia, Belgium, and France that Austria lost its grip. Austria still stands, although it has had to make some minor concessions to liberals, in particular, the abdication of Ferdinand I and greater political power given to the Austrian Diet. Nonetheless, Austrian policy on minorities still stand. Only true-blood Germans hold power in the empire, for now. The newest great power, the Kingdom of Sardinia, has surpassed both the Ottoman Empire and even the Kingdom of Spain as the rising star on the European stage. With the help of France and Belgium, Sardinia was able to capitalize on Austria's internal conflicts to seize the Lombardy region and wrest Habsburg control over the North Italian states. Like Prussia to the north, Sardinia has emerged as the leading champion of pan-Italian unity. Many have concluded that Sardinia will naturally pursue an alliance with Prussia, since both covet Austrian land. However, there are some doubts that their goals are truly aligned. The Kingdom of Spain, which is united with the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies under the House of Bourbon, is challenging Sardinian hegemony on the Italian peninsula. And since Spain is allied with Prussia, it may be that Prussia could be Sardinia's enemy rather than Sardinia's friend. If this is the case, then perhaps an alliance with the United Kingdom might be more favorable. Not only is the United Kingdom a strong military ally, but it is also diplomatically isolated, having no great power allies and looking for friends on the continent. The Sardinian Prime Minister, the Count of Cavour, is allegedly having talks with Conservative Representative Benjamin Disraeli at Spa. It may be that the rising Italian star may rise even higher. Like a vodka martini, the Kingdom of Spain was shaken, but not stirred. Spanish liberals succeeded in coercing the Queen, Isabella II, to consent to a constitution, but she still holds the crown. Spain still clings to its great power status, even as new nation-states like Sardinia threaten to eclipse Iberian prestige. Nonetheless, Spain still stands, its colonies loyal, and its new alliance with Prussia, after France broke its alliance during the revolutions of 1848, promises to keep Isabella's regime propped up. The only fear present in Madrid is whether Prussia's hunger for more land and more power may drag Spain into a war she cannot win. If Prussia is going to be flanked by Russia and France, then Prussia is going to flank France with Prussia and Spain. Although it seems plausible that Spain and Prussia could beat Russia and France, the intervention by the other great powers, such as Austria, Great Britain, or Sardinia, could tip the balance enough to spell not only the collapse of the Prusso-Spanish alliance, but the Spanish monarchy as well.